In this episode, I want to talk about something that very few people say out loud. How do you build a relationship where your ambition is not a problem but a strength? Because here's the truth that many few people are uncomfortable with. Love doesn't destroy ambition, but an immature relationship can. For a long time, I believed the opposite. We grew up hearing the same message over and over again. That love and ambition are difficult to combine. That if you want success, you will eventually have to sacrifice something. Your time, your relationship, your balance. I feel success always requires giving up a part of your life. And for years, I believed that was true because in some of my past relationships, my ambition felt like a problem. It created tension, fear, sometimes even misunderstanding, as if wanting to build something meaningful with my life was somehow threatening. So one day I asked myself a very simple question, a question that completely changed the way I saw things. Is ambition really the problem, or is the problem the way we understand love? Because over time I realized something important. Ambition doesn't destroy a relationship. It simply reveals how strong it actually is. So today I want to share my experience, what I have learned while building my project and building a relationship at the same time, the tension, adjustment, and the psychological dynamic that people rarely talk about. But most importantly, a truth that very few people say, love and ambition are not incompatible, but they require one thing, emotional maturity. Jingle. Hello guys, I'm very happy and so excited to welcome you in the new episode on Lio BodyMind channel, the podcast that builds your physical and mental power. I think there is a huge misunderstanding about the word ambition. When people hear that word, they often imagine the same stereotype. Someone cold, someone obsessed with success, someone willing to step on others to get to the top. Ambition is often associated to ego, competition, dominance, as if wanting more in life automatically means wanting more than others. But to me, ambition has never been that. Ambition is something much more personal, much more intimate. It's an energy, a form of momentum. Almost a biological curiosity pushing you to explore how far you can go. And if I had to define ambition in simple terms, I would say this. Ambition is the willingness to expand, the willingness to explore your potential. It's refusing to remain smaller than who you are capable of becoming. And that perspective changes everything. Because in that definition, ambition is no longer a threat. It becomes a form of loyalty to yourself. It's a way of saying, I want to see how far I can go with the life I've been given. And from a neurological perspective, this energy is very real. When we pursue a goal that feels meaningful to us, the brain activates what is called the dopamine system. Dopamine is not only the hormone of pleasure, it's the hormone of motivation, exploration, forward movement. It fuels what psychology calls the flow state. The state where you are so aligned with what you are doing, that time almost disappears. And very often that is when we feel the most alive. So when someone tells you that your mission is too much, they are often reacting to something very simple. They're reacting to the discomfort created by your movement. Because expansion always disrupts a system that prefers stability. And inside a relationship, that energy can become extremely powerful. When two people continue to pursue their own growth, they constantly bring new experiences into the relationship. New conversation, new perspective, new energy. Every personal evolution becomes a new material for the relationship itself. And that's something many people underestimate. A relationship without expansion eventually falls asleep. Not because love disappears, but because energy stops circulating. When both individuals continue exploring their potential, the relationship evolves with them. And that's where the real question appears. Does ambitions threaten a relationship, or does it simply reveal what was already fragile? And that's something I start to understand the moment I stopped looking for love outside of myself and started choosing myself first. There is an idea that exists everywhere in movies, conversation, in advice often given to women. The idea that eventually you will have to choose love or ambition, as if the two things couldn't coexist, as if breeding something meaningful in your life must automatically cost you a relationship. Society loves creating these binary choices, work or love, career or family, ambition, or relationship, as if life only works through trade-offs. But when you look at research in relationship psychology, the story becomes much more interesting. What truly destroys relationships is rarely work. It's rarely the lack of time. What destroys relationships is resentment. That silent feeling that grows when one person feels held back or when the other feels abandoned. A study published in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology found that relationship satisfaction depends less on the amount of time couples spend together and more on the perception of mutual support for each other's personal goals. In other words, what strengthens a relationship is not living at the exact same rhythm. It's feeling that the other person supports your expansion. And that changes everything. Because suddenly the problem is not ambition. The problem is the threat ambition can represent to someone else. Ambition changing the balance. It creates movement. And the human brain deeply prefers stability. We are neurologically wired to maintain relational equilibrium. So when someone evolves, when someone accelerates, it can create tension. For a long time, I thought that was the issue. I thought ambition complicated relationships until I experienced something completely different. My relationship actually starts at a very specific moment in my life. The moment I stopped looking for love outside and started choosing myself. After certain disappointments, I began to doing something I had never really done before. I started observing my own patterns, understanding my behaviors, and realizing something very simple. Your reality often reflects your inner world. So I decided to change that inner world. I worked on my self-respect, my standards, my personal growth, and that's exactly when I met my partner. The irony is that Lio BodyMind didn't really exist yet. The idea was there, but it was not launched. A few weeks later, I told him about the project. I am a very intuitive person. When an idea appears, I feel the need to share it with people close to me. Not to ask for permission, but almost to create a form of commitment. As if saying an idea out loud makes it more real. And I remember his reaction very clearly. He looked at me and simply said, "Then do it. What you are waiting for?" It may sound so simple, but for me it meant a lot. Because very often when a woman talks about an ambitious project, the reaction is different. People always ask, "Are you sure? If that's not too risky, maybe you should wait." But he didn't try to slow me down. He didn't try to protect me from my ambition. He simply amplified my energy, and that is when I realized something important. In an healthy relationship, one person's ambition is not perceived as a threat. It becomes an energy that fills the relationship. And that is where things start to become really interesting. Because when two people are aligned with their expansion, the entire dynamic of the relationship changes. For me, everything starts with something very simple: energy. People often talk about compatibility in relationships, share values, share goals, share lifestyles. But there is something more subtle than that: energy, frequency. I truly believe people don't just meet by coincidence. Often, they recognize each other through energy, through alignment. When someone is deeply aligned with what they do, you can feel it. And neuroscience explains this very well. When you pursue something meaningful, the brain activates the dopamine system strongly. Dopamine fuels anticipation, motivation, and movement. It creates that internal pull towards something. And when you are aligned with your work, you often enter the flow state. That movement where time disappears, where you are fully immersed, and that state changes more than your productivity. It changes your energy, your posture, your presence, and yes, it also changes your attractiveness. Because someone aligned with their expansion radiates vitality, movement, life. But that energy doesn't appeal to everyone, and that's normal. Ambition can inspire people or intimidate them. It naturally attracts individuals who operate on a similar or complementary frequency. And in my case, that's exactly what happened. Another things that often surprise people when I talk about my relationship is this. We actually see each other relatively little, on average once or twice a week. For many people, that sounds strange because we tend to associate constant proximity with relationship strength. But there is an interesting psychological element there. The brain quickly becomes accustomed to what is constantly present. This is known as neurological habituation. When a stimulus is permanent, the brain gradually stops paying attention to it. In other words, what is always available can lose perceived value. And that applies to many things, including relationships. Space plays a very important role. It preserves curiosity, it preserves desires, it allows both individuals to continue having personal experiences. And those experiences become new stories, new conversation, new energy shared within the relationship. When we meet, we are not just repeating routine. We meet with things to tell each other, things to discover. And I think that balance between closeness and space is highly underestimated in modern relationships. Of course, that doesn't mean everything is perfect. Like any couples, we experience moments where schedules clash, moments where we wish we had more time together, but one thing has always remained essential: honest and comfortable conversation. To me, if two people can have uncomfortable conversations without trying to win the argument, they have already won the relationship. Because in most relationship conflicts, the problem is not disagreement. The problem is the need to be right. But relationships are not breeding one person winning. They are built on mutual understanding. And when two people remain in that posture, even when it's uncomfortable, the relationship becomes a space of growth and not limitation. And that's where ambitious couples either break apart or become stronger than ever. Because ambition doesn't destroy a relationship. It simply reveals whether two people are capable of growing together. The real problem has never been love. And it has never been ambition either. The real problem is the way we define those two words. Because many people say they want love, but what they truly want is security. They say they want a partner, but what they really want is someone who doesn't disturb their equilibrium. Someone predictable, someone reassuring. But ambition, by definition, creates movement. It creates expansion. It creates change. And not everyone is ready for that. And that's why many relationships fail. Not because people are too ambitious, but because they don't know how to coexist with each other's growth. Ambition acts like a mirror. It reveals insecurities, comparison, fear, and sometimes incompatibilities. And that is a reality many people don't like to face. But it's important to say it. So here we are at the end of this episode. Over time, I understand something simple. Love should never make you smaller. And ambition should never condemn you to loneliness. An healthy relationship doesn't force you to choose between the two. It creates space for both people to keep evolving, to keep exploring their potential, to keep growing. So maybe the real question is not, can love survive ambition? But maybe the real question is this: are we capable of loving someone without being afraid of their expansion, without needing them to stay smaller just to reassure us? If this episode resonates with you, share it with someone who might need to hear it. And until next time, take care of yourself and see you soon into the next one. Bye-bye.